Taiwan's defense ministry reporting that China carried out its first combat patrol of the new year today, with 22 Chinese military aircraft detected around the island nation. This comes after Xi Jinping warned that no one can stop China's, quote, reunification with Taiwan. That was in a New Year's speech on Tuesday. Xi claimed this, quote, people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are one family. No one can sever our family bonds. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te pledging to strengthen his country's defenses by boosting its defense budget. I want to bring in Gatestone Institute senior fellow and author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America, Gordon Chang. Gordon, telegraph those comments from Xi Jinping. What was he really saying?
What he's really saying is that the quote-unquote reunification, which really should be unification because China has never ruled Taiwan, that's not inevitable. And by the way, the people in Taiwan do not consider themselves part of the Chinese family. In the last major Pew Research survey, 67% of the people on the island said they were primarily Taiwanese. Only 3% said primarily Chinese. And in the younger age cohort of 18 to 34, the numbers were 83 Taiwanese, 1% Chinese. I think Xi Jinping realizes that as time progresses, Taiwan is developing an identity that is separate and apart from China, which is the reason why Xi Jinping talks about inevitability all the time, because he just knows that it isn't.
You know, the Chinese state-sponsored actor who hacked the U.S. Treasury Department targeted the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So this is the office that issues sanctions, and the office of Secretary Janet Yellen. All of this is in a Washington Post piece. Congressman John Moolenaar, who chairs the House Select Committee on China, he is demanding that Beijing pay for the hack, telling Fox News Digital, quote, it is time for Congress and the incoming Trump administration to impose escalating costs to deter the CCP. Are we behind the curve when it comes to cybersecurity? And how big of a threat are these hacks? Because the Chinese hackers are still emboldened.
Yes, well, they certainly are. You know, we have seen one major Chinese hack after another for decades. We are on defense only, and our defenses are not that good because the federal government doesn't mandate, for instance, that telephone companies, 9 of which have been hacked recently, that they have adequate defenses. Also, we don't impose costs on China. And that's an issue. You know, costs don't have to be cyber attacks back on China. And matter of fact, we shouldn't do that because we don't want to reveal our capabilities except in a time of war. But we can impose asymmetric costs like tariffs or other measures, for instance. We need to raise those costs so China believes that it can no longer hack us. But right now, we have an unacceptable situation because we have the means to stop this. We know what's going on, and we choose as a political system not to. So this is wrong on our part. It's now an issue of us.
Well, obviously, with the hack of the Treasury Department, and then in particular this office, you know, we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade the cybersecurity systems for these government agencies, and maybe now is the time that money gets allocated. I want to ask you about this, too. Xi Jinping also says that China's GDP growth is expected to hit 5% for all of 2024. He says the economy there was overall stable and progressing amid stability in 2024. You buy that?
Well, I certainly don't buy that. I mean, we are seeing record outflows of cash, both legal and illegal. And that is a real indication that the Chinese people don't have confidence in their economy. If it was growing at 5%, they certainly would. You know, just to look at some numbers recently, we just learned in the last few hours that Chinese box office receipts were down 23% last year. That shows consumption is failing. Consumption is supposed to be the major part of the Chinese economy, and yet it's not doing well. That's a real indication. You know, if you go back to 2023, when China said it grew 5.2%, independent analyses were saying it was like 1.5%. In 2024, we know the economy deteriorated, so it's now hovering about zero. Maybe a little bit above, maybe a little bit below, but it's certainly not going to be around 5% as Xi Jinping claimed.
Yeah, the truth is always fascinating. John Lonsky, get in here.
Yeah, Gordon, I can't help but think that the Chinese economy is going nowhere as long as they remain closely allied with countries like Russia and Iran, as opposed to seeking warmer, friendlier relations with their major customers like the United States and Western Europe. I just don't give the Chinese economy a chance. I mean, my view is the Chinese Communist Party made a horrible decision as far as what is in the best interest of long-term economic growth in China and a long-term improvement in living standards.
Well, that's absolutely right, because China's economy right now depends on exports. And the United States and the European Union and even countries in the global South are now starting to tariff and otherwise restrict Chinese purchases of Chinese products. That is a death sentence for the Chinese economy. And they need to have good relations with Brussels, with Washington, with all sorts of countries around the world. And unfortunately, Xi Jinping has allied himself with Russia, with Iran, North Korea. And those are countries that, by and large, can't help the Chinese economy. We can, but we won't, because we are starting to see that China is an adversary. And in my view, they're actually an enemy. But the point is, we are now seeing China in a very different light than we did 5 or 10 years ago.
And that's why, Tiffany, the conversation about the Panama Canal is so prevalent right now because of the Chinese.
Yes, absolutely. And
there.
President Trump, we had peace in our country under President Trump. He understood the implications in deterring the CCP. And right now in the Panama Canal, we know that the Chinese companies operate the ports on both ends of the canal. So we have to use our economic force to make sure that that canal works in the best interest of the American people. And the deal wasn't for China to run the canal. The deal was for Panama to control and run it. That wasn't part of the deal. So President Trump is standing up to the CCP. He's done it before. He will do it again for us.
All right. Well, there's going to be a lot to watch under this new administration and agenda. Gordon Chang, thank you so much for being here. Happy New Year, Gordon.
Happy New Year, guys.